Hi, and welcome to Lesson 5.5, Solving Multi-Step Equations and Inequalities. We've already learned how to solve two-step equations and also inequalities. Now we want to go ahead and look at solving those that involve multiple steps. So some new vocabulary we're going to look at today. We have a null or empty set. Basically what that's saying is no possible number is going to work to solve what we have. An identity is when you have two of the same thing. So if you get the same thing on both sides of an equation, that's considered an identity. And we'll talk about those more in detail in a bit. So looking at this first problem here, we have 5 times the quantity of h minus 2. When I say quantity, I'm referring to these these terms in parentheses. So 5 times the quantity h minus 2 equals 15. So when I see a number multiplied by a set of things in parentheses, a set of terms, I'm going to use the distributive property. So let's distribute the 5 to the h and also to the negative 2. Remember, you're looking at all these terms that you're adding together. So let's remember that we're adding a negative 2 whenever we subtract it. So when I distribute the 5 to the h, I get 5h. When I distribute the 5 to the negative 2, I get minus 10 or plus negative 10. And then that's going to be equal to 15. Now, can I simplify this? Well, not exactly. But what I can do is get all the like terms on the same side so I can get h by itself. And what I'll do to do that is I'll add this 10 to both sides, because what that does is it gets me only terms with an h on the left and only terms without an h on the right. So I'm going to have 5h equals 15 plus 10. 15 plus 10 is 25. Now, since I'm multiplying, I'm going to do the opposite, which is divide. I'll divide the 5, divide the 5. So h is going to equal to 25 divided by 5, or 5. And that's my final answer. If I double check, I can put 5 in for h, and we get 5 minus 2 in parentheses. So we have 5 times 5 minus 2 equals 15. So 5 times 3 equals 15, and we know that that is true. Our answer checks out. So now let's look at an inequality that involves parentheses. Same idea. We have this number multiplied by a quantity. So we're going to go ahead and distribute. And let's first remember that this minus is a plus negative. So let's distribute the 2 to the x and the negative 4. We get 2 times x plus 2 times negative 4, which is negative 8, is greater than 11. Again, let's get all the variables on one side. Let's get all the plain number terms on the other side. So let's add 8 to both sides. And we get 2x is greater than 19. But we want to solve for x. So then let's divide by 2. Let's divide by 2. We get x is greater than 19 halves. You could also say x is greater than 9 and 1/2. Either of these answers will be fine. So then, if we were to look at this on a number line, if you had, for instance, 0 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you'd have an open circle here, and we're saying x lies above that open circle. Any number above that is fine, but not 9.5 itself. So go ahead and see if you can solve this on your own. 4 times the quantity m minus 3 equals 12. And this one, 3 times the quantity x minus 5 is greater than 12. Alright, now let's look at solving multi-step equations. So, for instance, I might have 2 parentheses of quantities, one on each side. So again, let's deal with this one the same as we have been. We'll change the minus to a plus negative. Distribute the 6 to both those terms. So the 6 goes with the b multiplied. And then we're going to add this 6 times negative 2. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. So again, I just multiplied the 6 by both terms. So this is going to equal, and then I'm going to do the same thing with this 2. We'll distribute it to the 2 times 2b. And we also have to distribute it to the 8, so plus 2 times. Simplify that. Equals 4b, because 2 times 2 is plus 16. So now, I will get all the terms with variables on one side and all the terms without variables on the other side. So I'm going to add 12 here and also add 12 here. And I'm going to subtract 4b here and subtract 4b here. I'm going to get 6b minus 4b is 2b. These cross out. 16 plus 12 is 28. So divide both sides by 2. B is equal to 14. And that's my final answer. If I double check, 14 minus 2 is 12. 6 times 12 is 70. We get 2 times 14 is 28. Plus 8 is 36. 2 is also 72. So our answer. So go ahead and try this problem out on your own. So now let's look at this example here. The Carlton Company budgeted $18.25 for a banquet. The cost of the facility is $225. How much can the company spend per guest on food if there is a charge of $3 per guest for linens and there are 80 guests coming to the banquet? So we're looking for the amount that the company can spend on each guest, or how much they can spend. So to solve that, let's look at how we would set up an equation. Lots of words in here, but let's kind of break it down one at a time. We know that the total banquet cost is going to equal the facility cost plus the number of guests times the food and linen cost per guest. So in other words, if we're taking out this banquet hall or this facility, the cost of the facility itself is going to cost us something, plus each individual guest's food and linen. So all those are going to add up. So depending on how many guests we have, each of those food and linen costs is going to be multiplied by that number of guests, which is 80. So let's go back and look. Again, the food cost is what we want to know. So that's what we're going to call F. Again, I'm just showing you how we set up that equation. So the is 1825. And we know that the cost of the facility alone is $225. So that's what we have to pay no matter what. And then there's 80 guests. 80 guests times the charge on linens plus the charge on food. So the charge for linens is 3. And we don't know. We want to find out what we can charge for food. The base cost plus the number of cost. So let's 1825. Let's subtract 25 from each side. Equals 80 times 3 plus f. Let's use our distributive property since we have a quantity of terms. So we're going to get 1600 equals 80 times 3, which is 240, plus 80 times f, which is 80f. So let's now subtract 240 from both sides. Let's see, 1600 minus 240 is 1360, and that's equal to 80f. I'm going to divide both sides by 80. Those see that the 10 cross out. The food cost is 136. It looks like they would be able to spend $17 on food per each guest, and that would be answer B. Alright, so see if you can solve this problem on your own. Erica is planning to have a party for 15 guests. Each guest will receive a $2 photo, and she has $105 that she can spend. How much can she spend per person on food?